Okay, so one of the comments I got was talking about parking. Someone had a question about, parking, especially downtown and all the growth and development that's going on, right? So it's a really good question. And it's one of those things that is, for some, a concern, right? Because, excuse me, basically, when apartment buildings are developed, there's a certain number of apartments they have to provide. So if one was built where I live, they have to provide a certain number of apartments based on the number of units. When you get to downtown, that changes, and so they don't have to provide that. And the city is looking into a plan to where the amount of parking that's available is lowered. Excuse me, folks, I am sorry. I don't know if that's referring to all of the city or where in particular, but also there is attempts to also make sure that we have more bicycles, bicycle lanes, bicycle usage, stuff like that. Now, I will say this: Zeta and Zara recently got bikes. And, Noel and I, we've had bikes before, but the last time we owned a bike was years and years ago. And we didn't really use them. And so we hadn't thought about it. We have scooters and everything else. And so cars. We didn't think about a bike. Well, once the kids start playing on their bikes, and Zara is as tall as Noel. She's taller than Noel. It's crazy. She's only 11. And it was kind of fun. We're going around on the bike. It was kind of fun to do that. So she actually sparked in us this want to actually be on bicycles more. And we've been focusing more on our health quite a bit as well. So I exercise at least 30 minutes a day. Um, Sometimes it's a struggle because of time, but I still try to make time for that. I say that because bicycling is something that I think we should do more of as a city. I think that there should be more bike lanes. I think there should be more safe zones for people to use bikes. Yes, there are trails that you can actually go throughout the city, but also just in commuting. A lot of the recreational trails are great, but if you're wanting to commute and if you're wanting to basically go from your home to, say, your work or to run errands, there needs to be definitely more bike lanes, and the city is addressing that issue. They're going to definitely add by far more than they have as of now. I think they want to add 200 lanes or 200 miles. I can't remember now, but quite a bit. As far as parking, here's the part that's a little bit sticky for people, and they're not going to probably like it too much. I don't know all of the details, but most of the development, as mentioned, is going to happen downtown. Most of the new apartment construction, most of the people that are going to be moving into the city for the first time, or who are relocating here, or just in general, is going to be more downtown focused. It is the area that has more opportunity, right? So it's the downtown regional center. It's from Hilltop all the way into the Dome District. And the easiest way to understand it is to follow the light rail line. That's basically the general area. So within that area is where you have the greatest opportunity for housing people as they move in. So that means more apartments. That means that if that is the opportunity and downtown doesn't really require a lot of parking for apartment buildings, you kind of get an idea that a lot of buildings that will go up are going to be very close to transit. And so they won't really have to put in any sort of parking anyway, because they're going to be downtown or close to transit or something like that. A lot of folks are not going to like that. And, there are other cities that people mention and reference, and they talk about that, other cities have tried this, it didn't work well. There's issues with this, there's issues with that. And I do suspect that there will be growing pains. No question about that. But I also think that it's an opportunity for us to really push for more creative solutions. I'm a big proponent of having motorcycle parking. So I think a parking space, you could park like three or four. Some places do it where you can only park two. But UWT is a great example. They took one parking spot and you're able to park 4 motorcycles or 4 Vespas in that parking spot, right? Things like that. You're able to accommodate a lot of people. So if folks have, motorcycles, scooters, that type of thing, like a Vespa, they can park into one of those spaces and you solve a lot of problems. A lot of apartment buildings are designing themselves to hold areas for bicycles. So they have as one of their amenities like large bicycle storage areas. So therefore, if you don't have a car and you live downtown, some people are saying you don't really need, if you work downtown, live downtown, you may not need a car as much as you may think because everything is pretty much connected to light rail. If you needed to go to the doctor's office or to the hospital because you stubbed your toe, well, you technically can take the link there if you needed to because it goes into Hilltop along Medical Mile. If you want to go to the grocery store, Stadium Thriftway is right there. There's a stop right in front of Stadium Thriftway. So some would say you wouldn't necessarily need it. Where it becomes more of a concern is if you wanted to go to the mall. And I think that if there is going to be less parking, there will be a higher need to connect people to points of interest more so than we have right now. We do have those with Pierce Transit, but I think it needs to be done more efficiently, like the express bus system that they're operating on right now on Pack Avenue. Things like that, or a full BRT. But I do think that folks are kind of saying like, hey, how are you going to impose all this and allow developers to get away with this, but we don't have the transportation flexibility that we need. You definitely want a city that is able to move people and to move them efficiently and effectively. And I think that that's something that is important. I also think that when I say there's opportunity, I think that it's an opportunity for us to expand our bicycle lanes in the city, not only just for recreation, but just as a mode of transportation. I think that's extremely important. I think what folks are not understanding is that you're going to have a large amount of cars in Tacoma over time. That number is only going to increase more and more and more and more and more. We don't have a lot of land. So if you don't have a lot of land, you need to build more housing to accommodate the people that are moving in. Not everyone's going to be able to own a car, right? Because it's going to be almost impossible to navigate. The congestion is going to be insane. It's going to be really, really difficult. So I get it. I mean, I get both sides of the argument where folks are saying, yeah, I don't want people parking right in front of my driveway and that sort of thing. On the other hand, as a city, what do you do when you have a large volume of people moving in? And what if, people own 1 or 2 cars a person? Then you have a problem. So it can escalate pretty quickly. The wear and tear on roads, especially in this area, is a thing. So I can see why the city is wanting to move more towards having less parking and more public access to transportation than they have, because there's really not a lot of options. Yes, I know that it doesn't make a lot of sense for some, and yes, it may be a major inconvenience for others, and yeah, other cities may have done things and it didn't work well, but I think it's an opportunity for Tacoma to look at those other cities, what worked, what didn't work, and then figure out how do we move forward and do something a lot better. You're never going to be able to make everybody happy. It just isn't going to happen. But you have to work with what you have, and given that we are a fairly small city in terms of just square miles, we're a fairly small city, and we already have a decent population, almost close to 250,000 people, you're going to definitely start seeing more and more vehicles on the road. I talked about in the one video that I uploaded and deleted, I talked about, I know a lot of people who, when I was in Seattle and lived there, I never knew an actual Seattleite until at the very end, the last little bit of time as we were leaving, I met 1 or 2 people, I believe, that were born and raised in Seattle. Zeta was born in Seattle, right? My youngest. But I didn't know a lot of people that actually were from there. Tacoma, a lot of people that I know are from here, right? Or either they're close by, so they may be, some of the surrounding towns. but they're from Tacoma. I'm starting to see a lot more people now, especially the work I'm doing, of people who are not from Tacoma. They may have moved someplace to Seattle and then moved down here. Some folks have lived in other parts of the world and they're moving here. So it is gradually growing. On my organization's website, we have a daily population tracker. And that tracker is important. We cover culture, art, and science, right? You may be thinking, why does population, why have a tracker? How does that fit in? Well, it's important because it helps us understand, and it's on the culture page of Energize Tacoma. But the reason why it's important is because you're able to plan, not only as a city, but as developers and as individuals. When you know how many people are actually here, it gives you a better understanding of just how much the city is growing, how healthy the city is. If it's losing people, then that's another telltale sign, right? That's another concern. But if it's growing people, it's important to understand exactly how many people are here. You can kind of figure out the density of the city, which is around 4,500 people or so per square mile. That's fairly dense. And as that density grows, you're going to definitely feel it and see it on the street, right? So that tracker updates every day after, I think, 8 o'clock at night. It updates every day. And it tells you the number of people that actually, and it's pulling from 3 different reputable sources, but it automatically updates on its own. I don't have to, thankfully, go in and do anything. I can adjust it as I need to as things change and fluctuate. Population is not static. It doesn't just grow by a particular number every single time necessarily. There is flexibility there. But it gives you a general ballpark, right? It gives you a general average based off of how many people we bring in a year from 2023 to 2024. And it's basically just modeling that and how we are slowly growing over time. So the more people we have, the more likely they're going to have to live downtown, the more likely they're not going to be able to have a car. And if they do, they're going to have to find a place to park it. And so that is, again, the concern that people have is where are they going to park their cars, especially in a downtown that's becoming more and more dense, right? I do think that probably in the future, developers will provide parking, but they're going to have to be paid for, similar to Seattle. In Seattle, we have to pay for our parking spot. We only got one. I think you're going to start seeing more and more of that in Tacoma. We have a large area that is single family homes, right? So I don't think that's changing much. You will have some infill projects and some apartments and things like that that will go in. And that may create some problems, especially if we're lowering the requirement for parking. If it is citywide, that will definitely be a concern. But I think that generally most of that issue is going to be more downtown. And to be honest with you, I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if it is building a parking garage. I don't know if it's enhancing various different services. Don't know. But I do think that we're going to see a pinch point at some point, and we have to figure out how do we navigate that. Arguments on both sides make sense, but there's really not a lot that you can do as you start to see, half a dozen people or more move into the city every single day. It becomes a concern. Now, a lot of these are kids, so you have to account for that. So it's not just strictly adults. But again, that also adds pressure because you have to figure out in terms of schools, the volume on the streets. You slowly see it. I told Noelle, because I don't get out often like she does. She's always driving around doing stuff. And I said, when I'm out, it feels like there's a lot more people. I just see more people. Downtown's busier. It used to be, well, maybe downtown's busy because, the kids are in session at school, like soda kids and, UWT students and Bates Technical. But then whenever it's this time of year and UWT is, out for the summer, there's still some summer classes, but it's not fully loaded. And then soda is out for the year. Excuse me. And you don't see a lot of pedestrian foot traffic like you normally would when SOTA is in there in session, but you see a lot of vehicular traffic, and you do see a modest amount of people walking and roaming around downtown. So you feel it, you see it, but it's a slight change. If you're in it every day and you're roaming around constantly every day, you may not see it as much. But when you have someone that doesn't go out all the time, and when I go out, it's for a specific reason, specific purpose. I don't go shopping and do all those types of things. But when I go out and I see, I'm like, it feels a lot denser to me. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Tell me what your thoughts are. Does Tacoma feel like there's more people in it? Like, do you see it? We know that more people are coming. We know that there are more people moving into the city. But do you feel the difference yet? Tell me what your thoughts are. Comment below. Till next time, I will see you. Take care.